Hello and welcome to the special interview on Worldview. With me, India's Foreign Secretary Sujata Singh. Thanks so much for speaking with us, Ms. Singh. The sense really that when we look at the three big players, if you like, in the neighborhood, relations with Pakistan at a seeming standstill. The strain with Sri Lanka remains because of India's previous votes against them. And with Bangladesh, the idea that India has somehow not delivered on its promises when it came to the agreements with Bangladesh. Is India's neighborhood policy, in a sense, in need of a reset?
I think India's neighborhood policy is on the right lines. With Sri Lanka, we have a very close relationship, and we have worked consistently with them in protecting our mutual interests. They know very well what we expect in terms of protecting the interests of the Tamils and what we would like to do working with them. And also, I think that our recent abstention at the UNHRC vote in Geneva has given us an opening in terms of being able to work even more closely with the government of Sri Lanka on certain issues. With Bangladesh, I dispute your allegation completely. I think that there are certain areas, probably you're talking about the land boundary agreement, the Teesta Waters agreement, but in every other area, really, Bangladesh is our largest trading partner. It has overtaken Sri Lanka. With Pakistan, it's a different story, but that's not for want of trying, surely. I think that you have to recognize the fact that as long as you have incidents on the line of control, which have thankfully ceased or gone down considerably over the past few months, as long as you do not have closure to what happened in Mumbai in 2008, and as long as you have terrorism emanating from territory under Pakistan's control, it would be difficult to have normal, peaceful and friendly relations with Pakistan.
That's right. You're talking about a normal trajectory, but even the things that have been promised, perhaps when it comes to the MFN or what Pakistan calls the NDMA status for India, or whether it comes to the trial of the 2611 accused, something Mr. Sartaj Aziz had promised when he visited Delhi last year would happen very rapidly. Pakistan has not delivered. In a sense, are you disappointed with that?
Well, that's precisely what I'm saying. It's up to Pakistan to deliver on its promises. And even on the trade, I think we need to recognize over here that India does not covet Pakistan's resources. India does not covet Pakistan's markets. It is up to Pakistan to decide what is in its own best interest.
You said that the abstention at the UNHRC in the Sri Lanka vote is something that is going to help India-Sri Lanka ties. In a sense, why the abstention this year?
It has always been our case that it is a national prerogative to implement its human rights decisions. It is not for outside agencies, and especially not for UN agencies, to come in an intrusive role with an investigative mandate. The UNHRC was set up to deliberate on these issues. The UNHRC was set up to help with capacity building and to offer technical assistance to nations in implementing their own decisions, in strengthening their own human rights mechanisms. What the UNHRC was trying to do by means of this resolution in this particular instance was way beyond its normal mandate.
All right, let's move on to that other big issue when it comes to India's external affairs relations, and that is with the United States. Last week, the US State Department spokesperson said that the US would like to move beyond the Cobra Carter issue. Is India ready to move beyond the Cobra Carter issue?
Yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, it's not as if it is an insurmountable issue that's standing in the way of our relations developing in all other directions. And we have always made that clear that what happened was unfortunate, and we are looking at any residual issues that remain. We are discussing them with the United States with a view to resolving them. But having said that, The rest of the relationship is getting along just fine. You had the visit of the US Energy Secretary, you've had a series of other dialogues at the official level and the technical level that are ongoing.
Also the bigger development being that the US Ambassador Nancy Powell has decided to retire. Was there a role from the Ministry of External Affairs in fact the departure of the US Ambassador, given the kind of role the US Embassy played in having the Richards family leave the country?
There was no pressure whatsoever from the government of India on the US government. I think that you will realize that these are decisions within the sovereign right of any country. The role that the US Embassy played is something for the US state government to determine. I am looking at building the rest of the relationship. And I'm really not interested in postmortems right now. I would like to get on with strengthening what is, according to both countries, a very important relationship for both of us.
Not just outside the country, but also inside the country, India has been accused of overreaction over the Cobra Carter issue, whether it was sending diplomats back, whether it was the withdrawal of security, whether it was the prosecution of US Embassy properties inside India. Do you think you overreacted?
Well, we've asked them for the facts. We've asked them for certain details relating to their activities. And there was no security that was removed from the US Embassy. Let me make that very clear. As a matter of fact, what was removed were police barricades that were used for directing traffic.
Some would ask, even inside India, that when President Kalam was searched, the Ministry of External Affairs did not react like this. When actors like Shah Rukh Khan have been detained and manhandled, there was no big reaction in that sense. But when a Foreign Service officer is treated in this manner in the United States, then the entire Indian Foreign Service gets together. Why was there this reaction only this time?
Were any of them handcuffed and strip searched? The fact of the matter is that the manner in which this entire incident played out was not something that was in keeping with the friendly relations between the two countries.
In an interview to CNN-IBN a few weeks ago, the External Affairs Minister said that Secretary of State John Kerry had essentially written back to him and said that after their full inquiry inside their department, they had come to the conclusion that in fact the arrest of Devyani Khobragade was legal, that she did not enjoy immunity at the time. Is that the end of the road for India? Is there any apology that India will ever get from the United States for what it did?
You know, our perception of the manner in which the entire Cobra Carter incident played out would be quite different from the manner in which the United States looks at it. And I think that we need to recognize that as two mature democracies, each of whom have their own ways of, well, their own legal systems, their own interpretation of the Vienna Convention. We wouldn't agree with their interpretation, they might not agree with ours. We'll have to agree to disagree on certain issues while looking for a solution.
And as Foreign Secretary, what would you like the new government's first priority to be?
I think that there is a consensus on what our priorities are in foreign policy. And this is something that has carried on regardless of which government is in power. I think that there are really no great earth-shaking differences and no great moves that you can make to the left or the right. It is a steady continuation of all the good work that has been done in the past.
All right, on that note, I'd like to thank you for joining us, Ms. Sujata Singh. In New Delhi, I'm Suhasini Haidar.